Hi guys, welcome to another video from Rossi Audio. I think it's the third video this week. We're spitting them out in record tempo now. It's like having a turbo. Today we're gonna do cassette deck revisited. Yeah, that's right. We're gonna talk about some cassette decks today because I have had the pleasure of testing a really good cassette deck today. And here I have some cassettes. I have about I think I have between 200 and 250 cassette tapes in stock that I'm selling in my store. They range from like 99 cents up to about $4 each, depending on which one it is, artist, and which album it is or cassette it is. Some are demanding more money than others. And I have everything from classic, big band, jazz, even up to pop, like Whitney Houston, Eurythmics, and of course we have Natalie Cole, and we have all kinds of. I have all kinds of stuff. The only thing that I'm short on right now is classic rock and hard rock and metal. I don't have any cassette tapes there because they are pretty popular for some reason, so they're hard to find. I find all kinds of other stuff, but hard rock and metal and classic rock is hard to find. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about cassette decks. Let's go a little bit back in time because I don't use it often. Let me put it like this. In my private setting, I have cassette decks, and this is one of my private ones. It's gonna go home to my private setting because it's so good, and I like the brand. I've always been a fan of this brand. I'm gonna reveal soon what kind of brand it is. I'm a big fan of two brands when it comes to cassette decks. And I want to take you back to one of the brands that I've been a big fan of for decades. And that's the Norwegian brand Tandberg. They went out of business many years ago, but they made some amazing decks back in the time, back in the day. And they are really up there. They have a huge following. And they have some haters too, because people who hate Tandbergs are the ones who really like the Nakamichis, and vice versa. There's like people who love Tandberg who hate Nakamichi, and then you have the ones who like the Nakamichi who hate Tandberg. So there's kind of like people who's nodding heads there and fighting on who is the best. And then you have a little side group who is like into Aiva and other brands, Revox, Tascam and stuff like that, and other brands. But I always, from the beginning, was a big Tandberg fan when it came to cassette decks back in the day. And I will and would choose Tandberg over Nakamichi any day. I don't care if it's Nakamichi Dragon or whatever model you have. I would pick Tandberg over Nakamichi any day, just so that's said. Today we are gonna take a little look at this guy, and these are one of the newer models, of course, and we're probably gonna go back to the 90s for this one, maybe early 2000s, but I think this is a 90s model. And this brand was really good with cassette decks in the 90s, even in the 80s too. 80s, 90s. They were huge on cassette decks, and even in the early 2000s they did some really good cassette decks. With, of course, talking about Denon, and I have always liked Denon for many reasons. They made good amplifiers, they made good receivers, good CD players, good DVD players, and good cassette decks. They also made some awesome car audio amplifiers and car CD players. They are probably the manufacturer that in the last 30 years probably made the best sounding car CD player of all time. Maybe not the fanciest one and the best looking one and with the most features and the blinking lights and all that kind of stuff, but when it came to sound, oh yeah, they had the best sounding ones. So I have run a little test on this Denon today. I have played these three cassette tapes. I have three here. This Denon here, I'm going to take you closer a little bit later on. This Denon is a double decker, deck A and deck B. Normally people are not too fancy about double deckers. They like to have one deck, like one cassette, because too much things can go wrong with when you have a deck A and deck B. And they say the sound quality goes down when you have deck A and deck B. That might be true. I'm not going to dispute that in any way, but it's very handy to have a deck A and deck B if you want to do some recordings and all that kind of stuff. I like deck A and deck B just because of the user friendliness and all that kind of stuff that it brings. This is the DRW-55. Look it up if you want to. I don't have the specs in front of me right now, but it's the DRW-55. It is, of course, equipped with a lot of functions, equipped with a lot of stuff. It has everything it needs. It has everything that you want, all the Dolby things and auto reverse and all that kind of shit. What I have done to this one is almost nothing. I just cleaned the heads, I just cleaned everything inside, and just opened it up, took a quick look to make sure that everything was okay. The belts are still fine, it works, so I didn't need to do much. I just did a quick cleaning on it. So we tested it with Natalie Cole. The cassette is called With Love and it has Unforgettable on it. I tested it with Eurythmics with a cassette called Revenge. It has it's probably some cassette that most people, or an album that most people are familiar with because they have Thorn in My Side on it and stuff like that. And then we have Whitney Houston, self-titled Whitney Houston cassette. So I used these three as a little test today just to get a little thing. And I also tested it with a big band cassette. I'm not sure if I have it over here, but let me see. Yeah, I have it. I also tested this one. Big bands, the best of the big bands. And here's what you have to know about cassettes. There is a big difference because a lot of people said, oh, the sound in cassette decks is so bad and so much worse than CDs and FLAC and lossless, digital and vinyl. If you can get a really, really good cassette deck and you can get a good recording, because not all of these cassette tapes are recorded the same way or with the same quality. I'll take one example here. The big bands, Eurythmics. When I played this cassette here, the big bands, the sound was very low on certain frequencies and very high on other frequencies. It has some hiss, not some, it had a lot of hiss and a lot of noise, a lot of crackling noise and a lot of stuff going on. And I was like, holy crap, that is really bad, because I hadn't been listening to tapes for like a couple of years. I just had them standing around at home. And so I put Eurythmics on, same player, I used both A and B just to see if there was any difference on both of them. And when I put the Eurythmics in, the difference in sound was like night and day. Clear sound, no hiss, no crackling noises, nothing, no distortion on the tape like I had on the big band tape. So it's all about how it's been recorded, and the tape it's been recorded on, the quality of the tape and all that stuff. So you know, you should check into it, because there is a difference in the tape itself. So many times it's not the deck, it's the tape. You have the same thing on CDs. If you look up CDs, you have AAD, ADD, and DDD. So it's all about how things have been recorded onto the disc or onto the tape. So the sound quality can be really big from one tape to another or from one CD to another. So keep that in mind when you test equipment. It's not always the equipment that it can be bad. So that's why you want to test equipment with several CDs or several cassettes or several vinyls or even several digital files. Because not all digital files sound the same way either. There is quality differences there too. So, okay, what do I think about this Denon DRW-55? This is my third or fourth Denon cassette deck that I have had for a period of time and been able to test. I had it running here today for about 6.5 hours, changing cassette decks. I have used the same Radio Shack MPA 250A amp because it's just hooked up, so I use that one. I played on the Technics small speakers, and I played on the Technics SB7000A speakers. When I played on these smaller Technics, totally okay. Not too much too revealing there. Totally okay. When I hooked them up, because I had them on A and B on the amp, so when I pushed over from the smaller Technics to the bigger Technics speakers, that's when the sound really, when you start to hear revealing things in the sound stage and the sound reproduction and all that stuff, how good it is, how bad it is, what is really revealing itself as bad. So the SB7000A, that's when I really heard the bad stuff when I played the big band cassette. And that's when I heard the big difference. Of course, I heard the difference in the smaller Technics too. But when I put the Eurythmics on, that's when it really opened up. I like this Denon. I can turn it on. Join me. Come over. Let's see. Put a sticker on it. NFS, not for sale. Here it is. I always like the display on the Denon. They have nice displays. A and B. You have all the adjustments that you need. Yes, it's a black one. It's not no silver thing from the 70s here. This is probably a 90s, early 2000s or something. I think it's a 90s thing. So you have all the adjustments that you need. You have all the things that you need in one area. I like the layout on Denon. Denon has always had a good layout on their cassette decks, even on their CD players and DVD players too. That's why I like Denon head units and head sources or source signal sources, because they always made things very, very good in that manner. There is a remote sensor. I don't have the remote for it, so I will have to look it up and see if I can find a remote for it. That's typical when you buy things in a storage unit auction. The remote is always missing. So I have to find a remote for it. Like I said, I like the display on the Denon. Everything works. The auto reverse works. Pretty heavy little thing, for sure. So this is not some flimsy thing. Is it a Tandberg or is it a Nakamichi? No, it's not. It's not at all. It's not a Tandberg. It's not a Nakamichi. Sound-wise, it has a very, very open, good sound. It has a very good level. Some cassette decks, when you play them, tend to sound a little bit muted. So you have to like really turn the volume knob up. When I played this one, I did not have to turn the volume knob up on the amplifier really high at all. So it has a very strong output signal, that's for sure. And since I cleaned the heads and I cleaned everything, it has it only had some crackling noise on the big band cassette, and I think that's from the recording itself. So the sound in that Denon DRW-55, I want to say, is really, really good. It's really good. I had the opportunity the other day to test a Sharp cassette deck for half an hour or so, and compare that Sharp to this Denon is a totally disappointment. And I was reading online people who have tested that Sharp and have that Sharp, and they brag about it and they say it's really, really good. I was not impressed at all with that Sharp. And what happened was that I would have played longer than half an hour, but after half an hour, it started eating tapes. So I have to do some service on it. That Denon is sound-wise is better than the Sharp. Maybe the Sharp will be better if I clean it and put some new belts on it and stuff like that. Maybe it will sound better, but I was not impressed when I heard it. This Denon has really been impressing me. I have some other JVC cassette decks up here. I also have some cassette decks at home, JVC, that I'm going to bring to the store soon and do some testing on. So I will compare this Denon to at least these two JVCs that I have on the shelf over here, and I will come back to you later with that, what I think. The JVCs that I have here is a TDW-95 and a TDW-201. So I'm going to test both of those because I know those are cleaned and new belts, so they should be good to go and should be a good match to test up against the Denon, even though I think the Denon has a better system built in, because I think that's a more expensive, it was a more expensive cassette deck when it was new than the two JVCs. So maybe it is unfair to put them up against each other, but maybe I can do a test of the two JVCs up against each other. But the final verdict is the Denon DRW-55 a good cassette deck? And is it worth to pay 60, 75, 80, 100 bucks for? Because that's where I see them on eBay. I can't really tell you what kind of condition they are in when you pay that. I know if I was going to sell this today, the way it is now, serviced and cleaned, I would probably ask $125 for it. And I think it's well worth it. Is it something that I recommend you to buy? If you can find one of those in good condition, yes. A Denon DRW-55 is a cassette deck that I absolutely recommend if you're looking for a cassette deck without breaking the bank. Let's say you don't want to spend $4 or $5 grand to buy a Dragon or buy one of the Tambergs. You don't want to spend $2,000 or $3,000 to buy an Iva, or you don't want to spend $800-900 to buy a cheaper Tamberg or a cheaper Nakamichi. But you have $100-200 to buy a cassette deck that plays good and have good features and have a lot of stuff on it that you need. Then the Denon DRW-55 is a good option and a good buy, and I would recommend you to buy it. It gets thumbs up, it goes 2 thumbs up, and I really don't see you can go wrong with any Denon. As long as they are in good condition and they have been serviced, you can't go wrong with too many of the Denon products from the 80s and 90s and even a bit earlier. Denon was really on their high end and their high thing quality wise and product wise in the 80s and 90s. That's when Denon really ruled. They put out awesome products and their quality was like unmatched many times. So if you want to buy something from that has the name Denon on it, 80s and 90s, even early 2000, I want to say up to about 2004, you can't really go too much wrong with any Denon product. So I hope this helped you out. So if you're looking for a cassette deck, the Denon DRW-55 is a good buy. Go for it.